In this topic, we have to learn using of methods, classes, and objects. What are some parts of classes? And how will you create a template for different objects? Now, in this topic, we have the following objectives, and we have to learn one by one for this. First, we have to understand method calls and placement. So, a method is a program module to perform a specific task. And class can contain many methods. Now, to execute the method definition, we have to invoke or call the method. And we can place the method call in any other method. And that method contains the method call or the invocation method is called the client method. Again, how will we run the statements within the method definition? By calling the method. Just like this one, we have a figure which shows the first class with a method to the display address method call. So we didn't know what's the content or what's the statement of this display address method call, since this is just a method call. Now, the method which is very important in any Java program is the main method. And here we can put our method calls. And this figure shows the placement of methods within a class. We have the class named first and the main method, which contains the method call display address. And we can put any method definition outside this main method. Okay, just like here. Okay, we can place additional methods here after the main method. Take note, we have to place the method definition in outside any other method, but within the class. The method must include the method header. So this method header is called the method declaration. Of course, we have several content of method header, and we will examine it later. After the method header is we have the method body. Content of the method body will be placed between a pair of curly braces. And this method body is called the method implementation because it contains the definitions of the method. Just like this. So here it shows the method definition of the display address. Right? Now, what are the method headers here? For example, if we are to evaluate the method headers in the main method, this entire line here is the method header. And another method header for the display address is this entire line here. And we have the access specifiers, public, then the keyword static, then the void keyword. This is opposite to a value returning method, meaning this method does not need to return a value and can be a standalone method. And the method name is display address. Upon executing the program and interpreter have encountered this method called display address, it will look for the method definition which has the name display address, and which is this one. And execute the statements within this method definition just to display or print the literal strings XYZ company, the address with the the zip code. Okay, and if you are going to identify the method bodies of these methods respectively, is we have here the content of the main method, or the method bodies of the main method, is these statements here, okay, starting from the opening curly brace and the closing curly brace. And the display address method body starts from here. Right? Now, understanding the construction of the method. The method header contains the access specifiers, public, private. Now we have to focus on public access specifier. Okay? Return type, either you'll return a primitive value like integer, character, string, double, and an identifier, which is the name of the method, and a pair of parentheses. Okay? Where the parentheses might contain data to be sent to the method, it might contain the parameter. So can be a method with parameters or without the parameters. And the method must be placed within the entire, or place the entire method within the class that will use it. Worse, you have to place the method within the class, but not within any other method. So we cannot nest a method. Now we have the access specifiers: public, private, protected, or package. Public access specifier, that member of the class is accessible outside the class. If it is declared as private, it's private within the class, meaning the member of the class can only be used within the class. The protected access is falling between the public and private access specifier, because only the child class can access the protected member of the class. Okay? Package access is only within the package can access the package access specifier, or the default access. Okay? So we have here the public access allows use by any other class. Any member of a class with access specifier public can be used outside the class. Okay, and it can also be called an access modifiers. And now we have to focus on the public access. Okay, commonly used access specifiers for methods is public access specifier. Now, we have the access specifiers for two methods. In this first one, the method main in an application must specify public access. The main method must be specified with a public access specifier. Okay? The main method must be declared as public. And here, in this display address method, the access specifier being used is public. And they are both using static. Now the static modifier means that these methods do not require an object to be created, just to use this display address and main method. That is why the main method must be of static modifier. Now the return type, okay, this describes the type of data that the method sends back to the calling method. For the return type, you may specify an integer or any primitive type like double, character, string, or you may use a void type, okay, if there's no data being returned to the method. So you can use the void return type. Here, in these two method declarations, the main method uses the void return type, and this display address uses the void return type also. So this display address and main method do not send any information back to the method that calls it. And in an or in any application with a main method, it must have used a void return type. Okay, in any other method, you can use either void or any return type. Okay, whether primitive type or the object type. Because you can also use the object return type for the method if ever an object will be expected to return for that method. Now, how will you name your method name? Okay, it's any legal identifier. Must be a one word only, meaning the method name must not contain any space. And of course, for any legal identifier, it must not be a Java reserved word or Java keyword. Now, we have the main method. Okay, this method that executes first when you run application or when you run an application. So that is why main method is very important in any Java application. And this display address is the other methods, okay, that can be written with using any method name as any legal identifier. Now, every method header contains a set of parentheses. So it's the rules that for the method definition and method call must be contain a set of parentheses and may contain data to be sent to the method, meaning it may have the parameters, but you can have also a method without parameters if ever no data will be sent to the method. Now, in a method main, we have two sets of parentheses with parameters. In a main, we have a string array type of arguments for the parameters. In the display address, it's without parameters since there are no local parameters here, since there's no data to be sent for this method. Now, adding parameters to methods, we have the arguments. These arguments are data items that can be used in a call to a method. For the parameters, so these data items received by the method. Of course, for the method call, if you are specifying data to be sent for the method, is it you must have to pass arguments for the method call. Okay, for the parameters to be received, the value or the copy of the data. Now, we can implement information hiding or implementation hiding by the encapsulation. Okay, so this implementation hiding specifies the encapsulation of method details within a class. Okay, so that the users will focus on using the method, using the data. And the calling method needs to understand only the interface to the called method. And this interface is the only part of a method that the client sees or with which it interacts, because you cannot see the implementation details. That is called implementation hiding. Now, for creating a method that receives a single parameter, we have to define the following: the optional access specifiers, a public, private, protected, or package access, the return type for the method, whether primitive, object, or void, okay, the method name, the parameter type, and local name for the parameter. A parameter type, whether the value which describes that the parameter will receive, either integer, double, or object. Just like this one, the method predict race has one formal parameter. And this formal parameter named salary is of double type. So this single parameter here is expected to receive a value of type double. So either a whole value number can be passed as an argument for the calling method predict race, or either number with decimal parts, but you cannot pass a character or an object type for this predict race. Okay, it must suffice the data type that this parameter will receive. Okay, now the local variable, this is any variable name, any identifier name for the local variable for the parameter. And this variable is redeclared. That a new memory location, which is large enough to hold the type that is set up and named. Because we are requesting a memory address where this variable is being located. Okay, now we have the predict raise method call and passing salary as an argument, in which the value of salary is 200. Okay, 200.00. This value will be passed as an argument for this method call. So, since the value of salary will be passed as an argument here, the salary here in the method definition predict raise will receive the value being passed in the method call, which is 200. So, this variable here, salary, is local within this one. And this salary variable here is different from here, but of the same value, right? Okay, so it's different from here. This just receives a copy of the value in the argument, which is passed in the method called predict raise. Now, how many method calls for the predict raise? There are, this is the first method call, second, third. So there are 3 times that this predict raise is being called. And of course, with different values being passed in each method call. Okay. In the first call, the value for 100 is being passed. So salary receives the first value, which is 400. So 400 is being used within this method definition, predict raise. After performing the first method call, another statement is another method call for predict raise, which passed the value of salary, which is 200. So at this time, the value of 200 is being passed and being received here. Okay? So first is 400. Next is 200.00, of course. And the third method call passes the argument value of starting wage, which is 800. So 800 is being passed here. Okay, 800.00. Okay, so there are 3 different values being passed in each method calls. Now you can have multiple parameters for a value with parameters, and you can separate your parameters with a comma. Okay, just like this one, there are 2 parameters named salary of type double and rate that is of type double. So for the method call, it's expected to pass 2 values for calling this predict raise using rate method. Okay. Now, in this method, compute commission, there are how many parameters? 1, 2, 3. Okay, the first parameter is an integer value. The second is of double, and the third one is of character value. So in the method call, we must have to arrange the argument in integer, double, and character respectively. Okay? That is the first method call passes the value variable. The value is of type integer. The com rate is of type double, and the v type is of type character. Okay? It must be arranged accordingly, according to the data types being defined in the method definition, int, double, and char. So here in the method call, int, double, and char. Now, the method creation with a return type, okay, with a value to be returned. So this causes a value to be sent from the method call, then, or from the method definition to the calling method, to the method call. The return type can any of the following primitive types, class type. Okay, that's I've said earlier, it's an object type, and of course, the void type, which do not need to return a value, okay, which returns nothing. And this methods type specifies the method's value being returned. Just like here, this method specifies a double method return type. So it's expected that this method will return a value that is of type double. Since it specifies a return type of double, this will look for a statement, a return statement, which is this one. And what type of value being returned is of type double. Now let's try to evaluate what's the data type of new amount. It is of type double. So it suffices the data type that this method is being returned. It's of type double. Now, there are did code or unreachable statements that causes a compile error. Okay, compile time error. This is a logical flow that leaves the method at the return statement and can never execute. And here, okay, we have some time this chaining method calls. Okay, and this is any method that might call any number of other methods. And this acts as the black box, which do not need to know how it works. Just cover it with black box and just use the result. And here, okay, the method call calculate bonus with one argument of type double allows bonus amount to hold the value being returned for this method. Meaning, we have a local variable bonus amount, which is of type double also, will hold the value being returned for this method called calculate bonus. So the value being returned for this method called calculate bonus will be used for futures purposes, just like for calculation. Just like here, the value of bonus amount is being calculated, which is added by new amount, and the result will be stored back in a new amount variable. So meaning with the use of a method with return type or a value returning method, it will be used for futures calculation. Okay, for futures purposes. Okay. Now,